Greetings, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades. I'm glad you joined me on a Saturday show, Saturday live stream. I'm glad to be with you, even though the news is not only sad, it's pathetic. The 2021 March for Life has been self-canceled by the weak leaders who run it, and I cannot express the full degree to which I'm dissatisfied. I also can't express the full degree to which I'm not surprised. I'm sure you're not either. I've been saying it for months that we who are strongly, fervently anti-abortion need a rebrand as anti-abortion, not pro-life. The pro-life moniker smacks of the weakness of its own self-billing, its own name, right? Pro-life means categorically, we must be, we must always fear death. Therefore, you would bend the knee to the kind of beer bug regulations that the left wants us to bend the knee to. We must bend the knee to the attempted change in Catholic doctrine on the death penalty, the bimillennial doctrine, that the Catholic Church loves the death penalty. We love justice. You and I, right? We love justice. It's just. And so we're not categorically pro-life. There's this old expression, it's a joke aphorism. It goes, nomen est omen, means your name is your fate. I got that from Patrick Coffin, and coincidentally, he and I were talking about this pathetic, spineless, cowardly self-cancellation by the pro-life leaders of the 2021 March. I'm going to read you the statement in just a second here. And it's also funny that Patrick many years ago gave me this expression, nomen est omen. You call yourself pro-life, which is evil Cardinal Bernardine's seamless garment doctrine baked into one title. We're pro-all life. No, we're pro-innocent life. And that's not a catchy title. You know what's a catchy title? Anti-abortion. We are anti-abortion. We need a total rebrand. I love lots of the different personages and personnel that's been associated with pro-life over the last, 2 decades, 3 decades. I've cared about anti-abortion my whole life. This is the most important abolition movement in the history of the United States. And yet I've always bemoaned the weak, tepid, lukewarm rhetoric and the weak, tepid, lukewarm tactics of most of these people. But folks like David Delighting, who he and I share an attorney, and we've broken bread together. He's a good man. He takes action. He's not tepid. He's not lukewarm. There are people that he works with that are really good, not lukewarm. But too many of the quote-unquote pro-life leaders are pathetic. And today, or actually it was yesterday, the proof is in the pudding. They canceled the 2021 pro-life march on Washington, D.C. for the first time in almost 50 years. This would be the 48th annual march after Roe. And this is the first one they missed. Pathetic. First off, I just want to remind you guys, Tuesday, as in 3 days from now, Aristotle's Ethics, the spring section is opening up. We have our inaugural class. It's amazing. It's life-changing. It is the number one topic in the Western canon. The number one thing that one ought to study since the Nicomachean Ethics was written by the hand of Aristotle 2,400 years ago. Go to timothyjgordon.com. Enroll for this class. It'll be taught live by me on Zoom on Tuesday nights beginning this Tuesday. Go to timothyjgordon.com and enroll. We're packing this one out. Our inaugural class, which started last fall, was packed out at 200. We hope to get there again. Please enroll there and see me on Tuesday nights. It's interactive. It's amazing. We do a live office hour once a week as well. All you pay for is the class and the price of the book, which you can get for about $10 as a paperback Penguins Classics copy. It's amazing. It's amazing time, and it's the most life-changing topic you'll ever study in one course. God bless you guys. Remember to hit like, subscribe, and click the bell so you're notified when we have live stream shows like today's. Let me read you this statement on the 2021 March for Life. It reads, "The protection of all those who participate in the annual march, as well as the many law enforcement personnel and others who work tirelessly each year to ensure a safe and peaceful event is a top priority of the March for Life. I think the top priority ought to be ending abortion. Stick to that, right? That ought to be the top. In light of the fact that we are in the midst of a pandemic which may be peaking, and in view of the heightened pressures that law enforcement officers and others are currently facing in and around the Capitol, I don't know what they're referring to. This year's March for Life will look different. They're doing a virtual event. In other words, they're going to cancel it. The annual rally will take place virtually, meaning it won't. And we are asking all participants to stay home and to join the march virtually. You can't march virtually, guys. I think it's common knowledge. We'll invite a small group of pro-life leaders from across the country to march in Washington, D.C. this year. The nerve, they're taking on the elitist attitude of the elites. Who are you to tell us? It's our First Amendment right. We march, I say we all go march, a big peaceful rosary march. It's always peaceful. We've done it 47 times before. I've done the West Coast one. And it's always peaceful. So what are they talking about? Law enforcement personnel will be stressed by a march. We've always done it 47 out of 47 times peacefully, sang the rosary, and it's never been anything but peaceful. Who are they to tell you what to do with your next Saturday? Pathetic. They're taking on that elitism of the other power dons in Washington, D.C. That really irks me, if you can't tell. I mean, is this not unbelievable? It's unreal. These leaders will represent pro-life Americans. How about anti-abortion Americans? Everywhere, who each in their own unique ways work to make abortion unthinkable and build a culture where every human life is valued and protected. Again, that's weaponized ambiguity. What are you talking about? Every human life is valued and protected. Every innocent human life, and the unborn are the most innocent, should be valued and protected, but it's weaponized ambiguity. You see all of the absorption by this beta cucked pro-life movement, absorbing the elitist weaponized ambiguity. They're saying ambiguous things when they're telling us to stay home as if they're elites. They're saying ambiguous things when they say that every human life should be valued and protected. Well, every innocent human life should be valued and protected, guys. This is basics. This is Catholic teaching. And as Catholics, we are at the center of the anti-abortion movement. If we don't lead it, no one else will. Even my Protestant friends admit that. And these guys are taking on the weakling, weak-kneed jellyfish, still waiting for a spine transplant rhetoric of the GOP, the anti-right GOP. It's pathetic. And now they're self-canceling. I'm going to show you how anti-science they are, which is always what we're saying about the pro-abort crowd, because they are anti-science. I'm going to show you how anti-science in a moment these weak-kneed pro-life leaders are, that make it sound like some guilty murderer on death row. We care about him, his life, the same way we care about an innocent little human baby. Pathetic. They continue, this is our last paragraph. We are profoundly grateful for the countless women, men, and families who sacrifice to come out in such great numbers each year as a witness for life. So profoundly grateful that they're canceling on you and telling you only their leaders are allowed to come out and march. Give me a break. We look forward to being together in person next year. As for this year's march, we look forward to being with you virtually. You know what? Take a hike, man. We need new leadership. We need a reorganized movement. All of the right-wing movements in this country need to reorganize. But let me tell you something, retrogrades. My parish orphans, come hither. We need to reorganize all of the right-wing movements in this country. And the most important one is the anti-abortion movement in this country. Look, I'm all for getting a little think tank on this. Let's figure out what to call ourselves. I like anti-abortion, right? How about the abolition movement? Did the abolitionists in antebellum America who wanted to get rid of slavery, did they say, oh, that's too negative? Of course not. That's what they were. They didn't call themselves a pro-life movement, because the life of an innocent slave whose rights were being overridden is what they cared about. Of course, that's what deserved their attention. It's what warranted and merited their praise and their efforts. Not the life of a slave who's being split, divided from his family in antebellum America was worthy of a moniker which suits the cause, which befits the cause. How disrespectful is it of these mavens of weaponized ambiguity, the weak-kneed leaders at the top that lead us to constantly lose? How disrespectful is it to whatever you're trying to abolish, slavery, abortion, to constantly put on par whatever grave evil you're fighting against, slavery, or at a higher level even abortion, with like, well, we value all life. You're insinuating violent criminals who are not duty-bound not to kill by the Catholic tradition and the natural law, by scripture, tradition, magisterium, by millennial tradition, until we have had two popes, 264 and 266, who got a bug up their bonnet about death penalty. Well, that's fine. That's their private opinion. They're entitled to it. But the Catholic teaching, which lies at the heart and the soul of the anti-abortion movement, says, great. Read Thomas Aquinas, #1 doctor of the church. Read Bellarmine. Read any of these guys. Read Ed Fazer's book. It's great, healthy, for the common good to kill condemned criminals, violent criminals. Don't put it on par with being anti-abortion, because those are society. Of all the colors of the rainbow, we want to save all the little babies and make it illegal to kill them, because they are the most innocent in society. So this is pathetic, feckless, disgusting, vile. I hope it earns your opprobrium, because it's earned mine. And I don't want to just sit out here and spit with an acrid tongue at these people. A lot of them have done good work, but a lot of them need to go. This committee thinking, this decision here is, it's typical. It's why we lose. I was just looking at the numbers. I'm always a person who will admit when I'm wrong. I was telling someone on Twitter, hey, pro-life movement's made a lot of positive momentum, covered a lot of good ground over the last 47, 48 years since Roe. Look at the hearts and the minds, as reflected by polling data, of abortion. This is the most pro-life, most anti-abortion generation yet. And they said no. And they sent me 3 different polls, and it's not. Especially when you look at abortion for any reason, those numbers have gone up. The pro-life movement as such has failed. The pro-life movement, I debated this with Abby Johnson in friendly terms on TNT, refuses to designate who its murderers are. How effective would the abolitionist movement have been getting rid of slavery if they couldn't designate, look, this is a grave moral evil, but it doesn't have an agent of the evil? Slave owners? Slave owners are the ones doing the evil. The murderers killing babies are in the first place the mothers, and in the second place the doctors, who are kind of contracted to do the hit. And if we're not willing to say this, then we've already lost. Like Obi-Wan tells Yoda, if Luke's not willing to fight, then we've already lost.
But people say, but Tim, what about the women who are coerced?
The women who are coerced are statistically insignificant, the numbers show. Right? You're being handed a pack of lies. I spent all night on the phone, a community college student who got my friend who is a professor who got me, this guy out in California who was he was like an ex-gangbanger. He was begging his girlfriend not to have an abortion. And she was the one who wanted it. Okay? This is the most typical situation. And how do I know this? Because it's illegal for anyone other than the agent, the mother of the murder, not called a murder yet, the agent of the abortion, to make the call. So we know it's statistically insignificant. That's like saying, how do we know that the person who's actually drunk driving is the person accountable for the drunk driving deaths? It's like, well, they're the one in the driver's seat. Only the women, thanks to the horrible status of our law can make the decision as to murder their own. The fathers have been ruled out of the equation. It's an ipso facto. Sorry, people. See, you've all been brainwashed. Even people that consider themselves pro-life, anti-abortion, you've all been brainwashed by the soft, centrist rhetoric of today's pro-life movement. I'm sorry, it's not good. It's not good at all. And furthermore, I'm going to read you over 1,000 health professionals sign a letter. Now, the date of this letter is like June the 5th. So we're talking about different riots. 1,000, we don't want to riot at all. We want a rosary march where people are ushered out. We ask them to leave if they're doing anything other than saying the rosary. And you know this. Whereas back in early June, in the last days of May 2020, over 1,000 health professionals signed a letter saying, don't shut down protests using beer bug concerns as an excuse. That's one article. There are about 100 articles that can be found from early June saying this. Another one, that was NPR. Here's another NPR one. It says, parties, not protests, are causing spikes in beer bug. That's from late June. Here's another one. The first one was from CNN. This is from NPR. Even in a pandemic, WHO believes that public protests are important. There are about 100 of these. This is from June 8th. So what was it? What was keeping the beer bug from spreading in early June? I don't understand. Was it that the fires? Was it that they were lighting fires and they were actually attacking policemen? That kept the beer bug from spreading? Was it the warmth of the fires, people, that kept the spread of the pandemic from occurring? What are you saying? I don't understand. How we ought to hold the anti-abortion leaders accountable for this. What do you mean? You guys, we're always saying, correctly, that the pro-abort crowd is anti-science because they are. The pro-abort crowd claims that a human baby in the womb, or a fetus in Latin, is not alive or is not genetically human. It's not a human life. Wrong. Verifiable wrong that it's not human life in its 46 chromosomes. Verifiably wrong that it's not living. It is human life. And we laugh at them, as we should. Oh, they're anti-science. Because they are. They're ridiculous. It's a pathetic kind of risible because murders are the effect of their folly. I know. I've been there. I fought these fights. I'm in the battle. I'm friends with people like David Delight, and I like these people. I admire them. I've stood shoulder to shoulder with them. I share lawyers with them who are Catholic attorneys that fight for justice, especially in this most important realm, this superlatively important realm. But guess what? Guess who's being anti-science now? The leaders of the pro-life rally. 1,000 scientists. Let me read it again. Over 1,000 health professionals signed a letter saying don't shut down protests using beer bug concerns as an excuse. That's from June the 5th on CNN.com, written by Mallory Simon. A group of health and medical colleagues has penned an open letter to express their concern that protests around the United States could be shut down under the guise of beer bug health concerns. The letter, which went on to draw more than 1,200 signatures, focuses on techniques to reduce harm to people protesting racial injustice. So now the pro-life movement, which I've long, especially the last 6 months, complained has been just cucked, just pathetically spineless, has now taken an even newer nosedive. It's an even lower depth than we were at before. Ineffectual, weak. People look at it's like we complain about the Novus Ordo Mass. People look at us and they know that we don't really believe. Oh, I do. Don't look at me. People look at stuff like this cancellation and they know that the leaders of the movement, or at least some of them doing the committee thinking, do not believe this is a pressing injustice that waits for no one. And just on Twitter, some goofball, some lefty, said, oh, well, you must not really be pro-life if you're worried about spreading the beer bug, Because for one thing, he's not even following his CNN, NPR, lefty science from middle June. But let's assume that there was a spreadable risk, a spread-worthy risk of that was non-negligible of the beer bug at these things. Well, what's the greater harm? A fraction of a fraction of a fraction of beer bug, of contagion by the beer bug, or like 1 million babies a year just in the United States being murdered, having their brains jabbed with forceps or sucked out with a vacuum cleanse. I think it's quite clear. And I don't understand, if I can go back for a second to this res ipsa loquitur, right? This is pathetic. You all should join me, please, in calling this pathetic and giving our opprobrium this way.
Even with Nick Sandmann.
Oh yeah, think of Nick Sandmann. I want to reread parts of the March for Life pathetic, vile statement. Think of what they did to Nick Sandmann. Right off the bat, they eat their own. Okay? Remember what they did? Me and Marshall were all over this. We're like, we stand up for this kid. Some goon is banging a drum in his face and he just holds his ground. And he's got a little smile because the guy looks so stupid. He looks so dumb doing what he's doing, aggressively banging a drum in your face. And the March for Life. Well, I had enough information to make the call 12 hours after it happened, 6 hours after it happened. The March for Life claimed that their leaders originally condemned Nick Sandmann, if I remember correctly.
I'll try to find
double check that that's correct.
I'm going to find
if
the
you don't mind.
statement, but I believe they made a statement.
Yeah, they made a statement condemning the guy immediately, and they claimed that there wasn't enough information to make the call. One, if there truly was a neutral amount of information, then don't make the condemnation of this honorable high school kid, Nick Sandmann, who honorably held his ground against some witless goon attacking him with a drum. Some witless leftist with a stupid drum who was attacking, who was a counter-protest because I guess that guy found anti-abortion movement offensive. So if it was truly a neutral amount of information and they didn't have the amount of info to make the call, well, why condemn this poor kid? And now I'm glad he's earned several dollars because of it. But shame on you. I'm ashamed to call myself pro-life. I'm anti-abortion. Remember how they treated that kid. Do we have a story on that?
Yeah, there's an AP News. March for Life apologizes to Covington Catholic teens for a, quote, rush of judgment. Again, they're just bow to liberals. I'm sick of conservatives. The story about Nick Sandmann came out, and immediately they fold like umbrellas. Like, oh, they eat their own. Like, all of us were like, no, I'm going to stand by my kid. This is our kid. We're standing by this kid until I get proved otherwise. I'm sick of these people always just bowing down to liberal mobs.
Yeah, you stand by your own. Look, and even I didn't have all the info. I didn't have all the details. I wasn't there when Nick Sandmann was condemned by these cowards that are running pro-life into the ground. But I didn't have that much information. But me and Taylor Marshall were both like, what are you talking about? For one thing, he's a good kid. He's out there. He's got the right kind of headgear on, right? He's at a pro-life rally, and he's just holding his ground. I like this kid. And they were like, well, I don't even know what they were lying about him to say. I don't even know how compelling the lie could have been. He was clearly in the initial video just standing there. And these cowards, these feckless dweebs who run not all of the pro-life movement, but at least enough of a share in the vote to make things like the condemnation of Nick Sandmann and the cancellation of this year's March for Life popular, or make it a thing, I should say, to make it a reality. It's pathetic.
This article goes to say, it says the Diocese of Covington and Covington Catholic High School apologized for being bullied and pressured into making a statement prematurely. Bullied and pressured into making a statement.
But that was the kid's school, okay? You know, his
Yeah,
feckless Catholic school.
Yeah.
They were bullied and pressured into making a statement. So I just, there's not a lot else to say. I was going to reread a section on this March for Life, the beginning part, where they're talking about law enforcement personnel.
Oh, sorry, the March for Life apologized.
What do we have to do with that?
They said, the March for Life said that they apologized Monday for rushing to judgment on the Covington Catholic students, saying that they experienced real and inexcusable intimidation and insults and harassment after attending the rally. Fold like umbrellas.
It's real simple, people. Not everyone deserves a leadership position. Leaders have to be able to handle pressure. When you're in management, everything's your fault. See, that's the thing. I'm not saying it needs to be me, but I will say on my own behalf. Like, I can handle pressure, and I don't fold. People that watch Rules for Retrogrades, you know, whether it's me or other people that you trust and you know and you listen to through good podcasts. I'm talking Michael Knowles, who always has a moderate but steady, strong voice, or other Catholics like Patrick Coffin or Church Militant that you listen to. You know that we will never, for all of our many faults, I got 1,000 of them, I will never be bullied into doing anything. You push against me, I push back twice as hard. That's not who's running this pro-life movement, by and large. Might be some of them that are ballers, that are willing to fight, like David Delight. And look what he did. He took actual action. That's dope. That's cool. He's one of us. He's anti-abortion. He's a real right-winger. But the rest of these conservatives are the kind of people that admit, could you read that line again? They openly admit that they're capable of being bullied and pushed around into condemning some kid.
Both the Catholic school and March for Life apologized for, quote, having real and inexcusable intimidation, insults, and harassment. For coming out, basically, the context was for coming out and condemning Nick Sandmann immediately. They're cowards. I'm sick of these cowards.
You see who's running stuff? In all of the right-wing institutions, it's this effeminate, and this is why you do need strong male leaders. You need strong male leaders, and no one's perfect this side of the eschaton. I'm the first one to admit. I ain't a perfect person. But you need someone that's open to the truth, and that is strong and will initially err on the side of favoring their own people. That's why I've been out in the public eye, speaking rather publicly for a while now, and I don't have to make this kind of sappy, pathetic, soggy sandwich apology to one of my own, because I don't jump on my own. I assume that my people are the good people because I know. A high school kid, whatever he was, a junior, sophomore, out at a March for Life, that has the gumption and the presence of mind and the character to stand his own against a grown man, some goon who's being a bully with a drum. I'm like, I like this kid. See, that's the thing, man. It doesn't have to be me. But when you pick your leaders, you need people that know how to be in a proverbial street fight. Doesn't mean we're peaceable. Don't go around. We don't want to fight. That's not what we want to do, but you want the spirit of being able to hold your own. And that comes from somebody that's been, when in their youth, maybe a street fight or 2 or 3.
5.
You can't fake that. Leadership has to be masculine. It's got to be tough. We're peaceable. Anyone, if we go out and we do this March for Life 2021, anyone that's doing anything other than peaceably saying the rosary, we're going to kick them out. Because you're going to make us look bad. We're peaceable. But it's a First Amendment right. I had people on Twitter saying, well, you don't know how much Washington, D.C. is on lockdown. I don't care. It's a First Amendment God-given right. It's Amendment 1. The right to peaceably congregate. Sing it to the birds, man. I don't care. It's my First Amendment right. It's between me and God. And same thing with all the other people that loathe abortion. We're anti-abortion. We're not pro-all life. We're not pro-guilty life. If somebody committed murder and they're on death row, we want them to justifiably, justly face their death and can repent to God and maybe wind up in heaven one day. That would be awesome. But the best thing to make them repent is the death penalty. So we are not categorically pro-life. We are pro-innocent life, and that's not catchy at all. So we say we're anti-abortion. Do you guys get where I'm going with this?
Some people in the chat are saying, but anti-abortion doesn't cover like end-of-life issues, like for...
Well, this is not mainly about end-of-life issues, right? End-of-life issues are really important, but it's not even one. It's like 1/10,000th of the equation, 1/100,000th of the equation. I understand it's growing. It's a growing movement in South America, but it's not what it's a distinction of degree that is so vast it becomes almost like a distinction of kind. Think of a vertical asymptote in algebra. It's the evil and the wicked, I don't know, distribution of power, the allocation of power between a baby that's utterly helpless and is utterly blameless in the womb. That relation that the baby bears with its murderer versus euthanasia, which is really important, it is a Catholic issue, end of life issues, is so vast, and then statistically it's so irrelevant, the euthanasia thing compared to abortion, that it's not, yes, we can also mention it at our anti-abortion rallies, but it is not even 1/10,000th of the moral gravity. I'm telling you, this is a moral philosopher. When you weigh this out in its relative factors, it's like, yes, abortion and euthanasia are the two non-negotiable life issues, 100%, 100.0%. But in terms of what's more statistically relevant and what's more repugnant and what's related to the sex revolution, people, I'm responding to you on the chat. The sex revolution issues are the ones that the left is using to divide us and to scatter society and to render us wicked and leaderless. I did want to read the first part of the March for Life's feckless statement when it self-canceled, though, before closing this thing, because it is an excuse. I don't even know
if I could hear it. I'm just going to be like banging my head against
It's an excuse. Listen to what they say about police. The protection of all those who participate in the annual march, their guardian class who want to protect us now, as well as the many law enforcement personnel and others who work tirelessly each year to ensure a safe and peaceful event, is a top priority of the March for Life. First sentence. What does that insinuate to you? See, if you stop there, then you can really read the subtext. The subtext is this an admission that it's a non-peaceful event? No, because it's a peaceful event. So I don't give a damn what you have to say about law enforcement personnel. It's been a peaceful event 47 times out of 47.
And it's growing. It's been growing.
And I hope it's growing. It's hard to tell empirically. I think it's growing. It's growing in enthusiasm with the Zoomers. And the Zoomers connect with what I'm saying. Cut out the weaponized ambiguity. That day is come and gone. That's for the 60s and 70s. It's what we don't like about the spirit of Vatican II. It's what we hate about it. It's weaponized ambiguity to insinuate that we might be anything less than peaceable. It's a peaceable movement. We are a rosary movement, a civil disobedience movement. And we're guaranteed that right by the First Amendment of the Constitution, and more immediately by God. And it's weaponized ambiguity to insinuate that the beer bug has anything to do with this. And it's bad science. I'm going to read you one more time. Over 1,000 health professionals sign a letter saying, don't shut down protests using beer bug concerns as an excuse. That is the title of the article with one word substituted out and in, beer bug. Over 1,000, I guess, doctors, health professionals sign a letter saying, don't shut down protests. Here's the most important part. Using beer bug concerns as an excuse, which is all it was here. Now they're talking about, they wanted the terrorist riots to continue over the summer, and they did. They continued for 6 months. They really wanted these riots and terrorist gatherings to continue over the summer, and they did. And they didn't shut down. And all these health professionals said, hey, beer bug can't spread at these things. I don't really care one way or the other, to be honest, whether it does or it doesn't. But I'm just using their own rhetoric now. And now these softy centrists who seem to run all of the right-wing institutions, feckless, pathetic right-wing institutions who always lose because I say they're oriented, they're set up to lose by weak-kneed leaders. Now they're using beer bug as one of their two excuses. What's the other excuse they used? Law enforcement. The hell are you talking about? Law enforcement hasn't got a damn thing to do with it. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. What are you talking about? We're not going to cause any trouble. We never have. We never want to. We're a rosary movement gathering under the First Amendment. We are not the pro-life movement. We're the anti-abortion movement, and we need to stop allowing ourselves to be called the pro-life movement. It sounds like a weird detail. It's not. Why? Because it's Bernardine's seamless garment that is baked into that. The leftists control the language, and if they control our language, our self-monikers, remember nomen est omen, then they control our thought and our first principles, our logical axioms, the way our connections work, the way our neurons and our synapses make connections in our brains in subtle ways. We're pro-life. Then all of a sudden you're susceptible to morons on Twitter saying, well, why would you risk the spread of beer bug? Aren't you pro-life? Then you have to hem and haw and answer the stupid rejoinder. This way it's like, no. What's someone going to say if I'm like, look, I am the anti-abortion movement, and this is an anti-abortion rally? What are they going to be able to say? Well, you claim to be anti-abortion. Why would you march on DC to express anti-abortion? Well, yeah, because of that. Even if it risks, I don't know, some new risk. Not law enforcement, not beer bug, but let's say some new risk in 2022 comes out. I'm still marching on Washington, D.C. peaceably because I'm anti-abortion. If you call yourself pro-life, you negotiate away all of your bargaining power. Then you have to just be for everything. It's hooray for everything. That's what we hate, this inclusiveness. It's weaponized ambiguity. It's tepid, centrist garbage. I hope this resonates with you guys, because this made me really mad late last night, and it's unacceptable.
Super mad.
I mean, I'm sick of losing, man. I want to win. We need guys leading the right-wing institutions. Guys, and not just any guys, not low-T guys. Guys that played basketball or football or boxed and have been in, know how the tactics work. Not because we're going to go play basketball or football or box. We need guys that have been in street fights in the youth. Not because we're going to go street fight, but because they teach you things about life that good women just don't tend to be equipped with. All right. We and low T men don't tend to be equipped with. They want to just make friends with everybody. That's not what this is all about. Life is there's a season for everything, as the hippies say. You got to make good connections. You got to make good friends. You got to make soul brother friendships when you're out there fighting the good fight, marching, being civilly disobedient for the right things. And this is the main thing that matters. God cannot smile on America if we keep killing our young. It's probably already too late. Look at what's happening. But we still have the moral duty to end it. And the March for Life was something I was always proud, was a yearly unbroken chain. And now it's going to be broken unless we tell them no. Write the leaders of the pro-life movement and say, if you cancel this, then you're canceled. We're never going to listen to you again. Write the pro-life movement and absolutely give them a piece of your mind. This is unacceptable. It's pathetic. And we're not going to stand for it. All the other right-wing institutions are already compromised. Anti-abortion is the most important one. God love you, people. This is our time. We gotta let the right-wing institutions, which are already in losing positions anyway. We're not going to start winning immediately, but we got to get the right people in power in our right-wing groups. God bless you. Deus Vult. Say your prayers. Say your rosary. Pray and fast for the Pope and the Church in our country, in the world, because I've just been going through the three-part mystery, three-part secret of Fatima. It all seems to be happening, and it's not good. God bless you. I'll see you next time.